Okay, let's talk about multiplying fractions. So when you're multiplying fractions, there's a couple things you need to know right off the bat, because when all of the operations are going on at once, people tend to get the rules confused. Okay, so the most important thing when you're multiplying fractions to remember is you do not need a common denominator. So let me get an example here. So let's say I was taking 1/2 and I want to multiply that by 1/4. Okay, so first and foremost with this example, these are already in the ideal format that we want, okay, because when you have fractions, you want it to be one singular fraction, okay, no whole number out here. When you do have a whole number, I'll show you what to do with that later. So when you're multiplying fractions, the first thing you want to look for is to see if you can reduce anything diagonally. So we look at this one, 1 and 4, nothing to reduce there because they don't have any common factors. 1 and 2, nothing to reduce there because, it's 1 and 2. They have nothing in common. So when we multiply, we go ahead and multiply straight across. 1 times 1, and then 2 times 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 4 gives me 8. Oops, 8. So we get 1/8. Now, some people might think, well, that might be kind of weird. How am I multiplying things and getting a smaller quantity? And the reason for that is another way you could say this, or another way you could think of this when you're multiplying fractions, is 1/2 of 1/4. Okay, remember, of is just a key word for multiplication. So when you're finding half of something, 5/8 of something, anything of something, that is always your key for multiplication. And if you think about it, 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/8. So it does kind of make sense. So let's look at another example here. One where we actually have some reduction. Let's see. What about 4/5 times 1/6? Okay, so we look at this one. Kind of ridiculous numbers, but just so you can see how this works. So we look right here. First and foremost, these aren't mixed numbers. They're already singular fractions like we need. So then what we do is we look diagonally to see if there's anything we can reduce. Okay, so we look right here. 1 and 5, nothing again. Pretty much when you have 1 up here, you won't be able to reduce diagonally. But 4 and 6, these both have a 2 in common. So I can reduce each of these by 2, or divide. Now, it doesn't matter how you write this. I'm just showing you for the video. So we do 4 divided by 2 is 2, still over 5, times 1 over 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Okay, so some people, they'll just slash down, write the number there, slash down, write the number there. That's fine. I don't really care which one you write or how you do it, whatever makes sense. But then now we have a reduce. So we multiply straight across. So that gives me 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 3 is 15. So we get 2/15. Now we look at this one, we ask ourselves, is this reduced all the way? And yes, it is reduced all the way because 2 and 15, they don't have anything in common. That is our final simplified answer. Okay, let's try another one here because I want to kind of make sure you see every situation you could possibly run into fraction-wise. Let me get a fresh board here. Okay, let's do, if you're going to multiply fractions, there is kind of a common case you'll be dealing with all the time, or one you'll see the most, and that's probably a whole number times a fraction. So let's say we have like 6 times 1/2. Okay, so with this one, you could think of it in two ways. We're finding half of 6, which is 3, which is pretty simple to do, but we need to be able to, work the arithmetic on this too so we can get the correct answer. So the way we do this is we rewrite 6 as a fraction, which is 6 over 1, and we times this by 1/2. Oops, times not equals. Let me erase that. Okay, so we times, there we go. So now we look for reduction again, and you should notice that 2 and 6 can reduce. Now, I want to note that you don't have to do this reduction step. It just makes your life so much easier if you do, okay? Because like I tell everyone, it's always easier to reduce smaller numbers than bigger numbers, okay? So 2 can go into both of these. So 2 goes into 6, 3 times. 2 goes into 2 one time. So now we multiply what's left over, 3 over 1 times 1 over 1. So 3 times 1 and 1 times 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so we get 3 over 1, or a final answer of 3, which we know makes sense because if I want to find half of 3 is 6. Okay, all right, let's take a look at one more example here. Like, what do we do when we have a mixed number? Okay, I'm going to show you that, and then I think that'll be good for this. Let's see. Let's kind of kill two birds with one stone here. Let's do a mixed number and a whole number. So let's say I need to take 34, and I need to multiply that by 2 and 3/17. Kind of ridiculous numbers, but it could be one of those things, like instead of 17ths, make it 16ths. It's like I have 34 pieces. I know they have to be this long, so I have to multiply to get the final answer. Okay, so let's go through our steps here. So 34, we have to write that as an improper fraction. So we write this as 34 over 1 equals, sorry, keep doing the equals, not equals, times, there we go. Maybe I'll get it right one day. So now this one, recall the earlier videos, we make this an improper fraction. Okay, so we write this, let's see, 2 times 17 is 34, plus 3 is 37 over 17. Again, we look for cross reduction, and especially with this type quantities like this, I really try to do the cross reduction because it'll make the numbers a lot smaller, because I really don't want to do 34 times 37 and 1 times 17 and then try to look for the reduction there. So if you notice, 17 and 34 can reduce. 17 goes into 17 one time. 17 goes into 34 twice. So we multiply straight across what's left over. So 2 times 37, what's that? 74 over 1, which is just 74. Okay, so the important thing here to remember when you're multiplying fractions, notice I did not find a common denominator for any example I did. And if there's any whole numbers or mixed numbers, you have to make them improper fractions in order to multiply, okay? Because you think about multiplication, we have to multiply everything by everything. That's the only way we can achieve this, okay? And the other thing, a lot of the examples I did had this problem, but make sure you reduce at the end.